So we're recording this call for transparency, educational and documentation purposes, and the recording is going to be posted to social media. So I want to thank you all for joining us. I'm Edwin Rutsch, founding director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. And this is a series of empathy circles we're holding with the Santa Barbara community to discuss our vision, or everyone's vision, and ideas for building an empathy-based retreat center at 1964 Canoas Road. Previously, it was called St. Mary's Seminary. And this is our 11th circle. And in this series, we also hold these on every Saturday, and everyone's welcome to join us. That's an open session. And this is sort of a closed, just smaller group session. And we invite everyone to join one of these dialogues and share your vision. And the center, our mission is to raise the level of empathy in society through education and community initiatives. And if you'd like to join us in one of these circles, you can find my contact info down in the description, the video description. And there we have someone else joining us. Okay. So 1 second as we get oriented here. Hopefully. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to start with some introductions. Everyone introduce themselves. We'll have about 80 minutes for doing the empathy circle process, and then we'll have about 30 minutes for open discussion. And the other person's having a little trouble joining, but hopefully his connection will, no. Yeah. So anyway, well, hopefully someone's trying to connect and they're having difficulty connecting. So we want to get started with just hearing from everyone, your name, your location, and why you're interested in taking part in this visioning empathy circle. And I'll just model that. I'm Edwin Rutsch. I'm director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and I'm located here in the Bay Area, El Cerrito, which is just near Berkeley. And the reason I'm interested in taking part in this circle is that my brother purchased the property, and he asked me to manage it. And I've been working for about 15 years on how do we create a more empathic society, doing all kinds of different community initiatives, a whole series of different projects, everything from training. And I'm really trying to create more empathy in the world. And I just see this as just a great opportunity, this center, to do that. So I'll just call on everyone. Dave, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Gottfried. I'm a private investor and an artist, and I've been working with Edwin for a long time on the empathy project. Particularly, we went to a lot of protests where there was a lot of combat and where we tried to help people understand each other with some success sometimes. And we're building a nonprofit. I'm going to be on the board with Edwin and trying to help figure out what we're going to do here.
Yeah, and there's a documentary called Trump Phobia, What Both Sides Fear, that sort of features some of that work trying to bridge the divides between the political left and right. Sean, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks. Hi, everyone. Broadly. My name is Sean Mitchell, and I'm currently up just west of Seattle in the Olympic Peninsula Islands there. But today I'm heading to Santa Barbara, where up until, I guess, just before, a little bit before COVID, I worked for a retreat center in Santa Barbara for about 10 years, which is where I met Candace and Rodelae. In fact, La Casa de Maria retreat center there. And then when it was destroyed in a terrible debris flow, I was recruited in a sense to help a brand new retreat center launch in Italy, which was exciting and wonderful and joyful. And I was there until they had to close due to lockdown for COVID. And anyway, I consider myself to be a professional in the retreat center business. And I'm honored to know Bob for many, many years. And I'm grateful Candace and Rondelay have joined us today because, well, I love retreat centers. I think they're an enormous contribution to the world and we need them. And I'm particularly excited about Santa Barbara because when La Casa de Maria was basically destroyed, it left a real void in the community, and not just the Santa Barbara community, but anywhere from San Francisco to Los Angeles, of all the kinds of organizations that it served. So I guess that's enough of me.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Just a short 1-minute introduction. We'll have a lot of time to share in the circle. Robert, would you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, who did you ask?
Robert, Bob.
Oh, okay. My friends of the tribal families that I've had the privilege of meeting call me Zimfinity because I'm living my heart song of this walkabout. And I'm living in Santa Fe, New Mexico with my beloved and partner, Dolores Zimmer. And we've had the honor of working all over the world in design, planning, and clearing properties. One of our, and I will not go into much more than 2 minutes, but we worked on a project in Peru called El Monasterio, and it was the 17th century monastery of the Franciscans in Cusco that was being converted to a hotel by our client, Orient Express out of London. And next door, we'll call it a nunnery. And so we've had unbelievable experience that around the world working and restoring projects. And I think what really was important, Sean, I trust her heart song immensely, and telling me about, and Dolores, about Edwin and his brother, and the empathy. I've worked on a board with the Dalai Lama and for global business on consciousness. So when I hear the word empathy, it's embedded with so many words: love, kindness, compassion, but consciousness of our divine human that we all are, but we've been written on for too many ages. And so this has interest, Edwin, in what we've worked on all over, and love Santa Barbara, originally from Los Angeles, grew up in the film business.
Okay, wait a minute, just gonna cut you off there. Sorry, Robert. Just going to, if it's just a short introduction, just 1 minute. So we're gonna have a lot of time for, we're gonna have a lot of time to really go into depth. So thank you. Candace? Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Candace McNair. And as Sean said, we work together at La Casa de Maria. And we're definitely soul sisters. I have loved and taken retreats all my life. I work and live in Sonoma County, but I visit clients in Santa Barbara once a month. I work as an energy healer, intuitive coach, exorcist. So I'm with you, Robert, in clearing out. I've been doing that for about 30 years. And also administration for retreat centers, for clinics, that kind of thing. Very happy to be here. I was an advocate up at Mount Calvary, which was the next highest mountain above St. Mary's. So I, like Sean, have really wanted to have another retreat center in Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Candace. Rodley, I hope I'm pronouncing
Yeah,
that.
Audrey Meininger.
Right.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I also know Sean from La Casa de Maria, where I was for 20 years, giving retreats and doing monthly interfaith Sundays. And to begin with, actually I started as a medical doctor in Germany, and I'm a psychologist in Santa Barbara, and I teach meditation. And I wrote 2 books on the path of compassion and how to heal deep patterns and find peace and freedom. I work a lot with my husband, who's a retiring palliative care doctor and author, Michael Carney. And we, for the last 6 years after the before last election, had an event that was actually picked up by quite a few journals like Tricycle and Lions Roar, the Solidarity and Compassion Project, where we had once a month people come who were either religious leaders or from the university, talk about questions of empathy and how to work with fear. And it became really an amazing project. We brought poets in and musicians to kind of make it a big community event, which worked really well. We were hosted by the Unitarian Society then, because La Casa wasn't there anymore. And so I'm very interested in how to bridge this empathy wall. You know, it's like maybe being a post-war German. My grandfather was a German, but a historian who fought against the Nazis and got them into deep trouble. I feel this responsibility to look at with open eyes and to see what can we do and actually how can we hold it. Because I think it's very hard on the caretakers, on the therapists, on the people who actually keep their eyes wide open.
Okay,
So
well, sorry. I just
thank you.
wanted a 1-minute introduction. Because we want to get into the empathy circle process itself. And so we, as I mentioned, our vision is to create a culture of empathy, or to raise the level of empathy in society. So I really appreciate everything you're saying about that. I'm also have a German background too, German citizenship. And so what we're going to be doing is the empathy circle practice. So I'd like to get into that as soon as we can, because what we do, it's one of the best practices, foundational practices I know of for developing empathy skills and sort of an empathic way of being. So in this process, hopefully you saw the instructions of how it works. There's one person who's a speaker. They're going to select their listener, and you're going to share the question we have is, what is your vision for developing an empathy-based retreat center at 1964 La Canoas Rd, Santa Barbara, or whatever is on your mind? So that is our question. You can also just bring up whatever's on your mind, whatever's sort of alive for you. We're going to have 4-minute turns. I'm going to be keeping the time. And when your time is up, I'll just hold this up. And so everybody has sort of equal time to share. At that point, you just want to end what you're saying in a sentence, get a final empathic reflection, and then it becomes the turn of the listener to become the speaker, and they select who they would like to speak to. And then you speak to them. You speak in small, say a couple sentences, an idea or two, pause, get a reflection of what you heard, or sort of the listener recaps what they heard. You check, did they really understand what I was saying? If they did, you continue speaking. If they didn't, you just can rephrase what was said. And as, if you're a therapist so far, you probably had a lot of experience with active listening, empathic listening. So we're going to have 4-minute turns, and I can be the first listener. And also I may put this up, like, remember to pause. Sometimes people kind of go on and on. and you want to just say, about 45 seconds or so and speak, and then pause, let your listener reflect back, or it becomes like, well, too much to reflect back. So with that, we're going to go for about 80 minutes doing this process, and then we'll open it up to just free form discussion. So who would be the first speaker, and I'll be the first listener.
I can go first.
Okay, I'm listening.
So it's hard not to be too excited about this. I find my imagination just runs away with all the possibilities.
Yeah, I'm hearing your imagination is just running away with all the possibilities and just feeling very excited about the possibilities.
Yeah, and I spent a long weekend there last weekend. It's just an incredibly uplifting place. And it's a place that makes you feel like you can dream, and that I suspect brings the good out in people.
Yeah, so you were there last weekend, and it just you think that place can bring out the good in people, and you just can really dream of the possibilities.
Right. So at the same time, it's a big thing. It's a big project, and it's hard to think about what to do first and how to think about what we're doing, how to position ourselves in the retreat world, as well as, we never were originally thinking about building a retreat center. And so this is something that is an add-on to all the things we were thinking about, but also seems like is a great opportunity to enhance everything we were thinking about.
So we were never thinking about doing a retreat center, but it's a great opportunity and a real enhancement. And how do we, some questions about how to navigate this.
Right, and some of the questions are very practical. What does it take to just break even in a place like that? And how to think about how to model what that means, and what should we be trying to do in terms of the numbers of people. It looks like we'll easily be able to sleep between 80 and 100 people up there. And so things like that. And then how to think about all the kinds of things we can do there, and how to, balance funding from fees and funding from donations. And we also want to use it as, I better stop.
Yeah, so you're thinking of sort of practical ideas of how to set up the center, how to do the funding of it, what percentage from the workshops, and just kind of figuring out all the sort of the logistics, practical logistics of setting up a retreat center.
Right, but and what's so exciting about it is, I just was at a party and did an empathy circle with people last night who've never done it, and I think the circle is very simple, and everybody who's done lots of people in the corporate world and the therapy world, they do active listening, they understand the process, but to use it in a conversational context is quite different. And so our goal is to bring it into the world. Everybody who experiences it finds it changes their thinking about how they relate. And, obviously we are experiencing a tremendous empathy deficit in the world. So we think it's very exciting and important, and we hope to make the most of it.
Yeah, so you see that there is a real empathy deficit in the world. You just attended a party and did an empathy circle there, and sounds like you're kind of explaining that people know about active listening, but sort of using it in a relational small group setting I guess, impactful. And that was the time too. So, okay, I'll speak to Sean. I'll reset the clock here. Yeah, I've just been up here at the center. There's a painting of it for the past 2 weeks. We're still in cleaning mode, trying to get it down, and it's almost ready. We've hauled off 6 containers, big containers of just all kinds of, old stuff, but we're getting down to where it's clean and we can start building.
So what I'm hearing from you, Edwin, is that you've been at the property for the last couple of weeks or so, and you've really been working hard, and I'd even say a lot of physical labor to get a lot of items pulled together in order to have 6 containers of unnecessary items removed from the property to clean it up and clean it up and clean it up and be able to kind of have a bit of a clean slate to build on.
Yeah, and I'm just grateful for everyone being here, especially since everyone's very experienced with retreat centers. So this is rather new, for us. So glad to be here with people that have a lot of experience to hear your vision and ideas for sort of developing the space.
I hear you saying that you're grateful for having a panel today that has quite a bit of experience, specifically in a lot of the different areas that encompass operating a retreat center, from the inside administration and practical to also being a very successful retreat leader and organizer, teachers, and in addition, developers who have a lot of experience in a holistic approach to a retreat center.
I also feel that this is very unique, that there is no place like this for empathy that's clearly focusing on the value of empathy. And I'll add that one of my motivations for creating a more empathic society is the stories I heard from my parents who were in the eastern part of Germany during World War II, and that the family members that were killed in the war by the Russian soldiers as they came into the eastern part of Germany, and just all the horrors that war causes. And I think that empathy is the solution to that.
What I'm hearing you say is perhaps you feel that a lot of your passion around empathy got generated as a youngster, hearing the stories of your family and parents suffering from the Russian and Eastern Europe atrocities that occurred through, lack of empathy and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
That has really, it kind of generated your passion to build a culture of empathy. And
Yeah.
so hoping that this particular property and the Empathy Center of Santa Barbara, whatever you end up to call it, is unique in that it can be a real point of light in the world.
Yeah, and it's like Robert's been talking about the lighthouse. That it is our mission or our vision is, and our values is that if people have empathy, and it's mutual too, that we have mutual empathy, that's a real foundation for just building a better world.
Yeah.
Yeah, your notion of the property being a lighthouse and how important it can be in helping to create mutual empathy as a brand new, but as a hugely recognized practice.
And that was my time, so I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay. Robert, I'll speak to you.
I'm touching my ear because I've got an amplifier that I just got. And so I'm not hearing great. Am I the listener or the talker right now for this? I couldn't
You're the
hear it.
listener. You're the listener. Sean
Okay.
will be speaking to you. Mhm.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, when I first met with Edwin and Charles, I was really touched with, and like David said, you know, what an exciting, wonderful, incredible opportunity this is for building a culture of empathy. And in addition, having a retreat center in Santa Barbara, in addition to having a retreat center in Santa Barbara.
When you first met Edwin, it really spoke to you about first meeting him and to have an empathy center, and especially in Santa Barbara, and what the building could bring to all.
I believe that raising the consciousness of individuals begets raising the consciousness of a community, which also begets then the raising of consciousness in a region and in the world, almost like, you know, critical mass theory.
Raging, which is a great thought, that's an ad lib. The consciousness of both the community, but going out into a larger community, region, etc.
Yes, thank you. My vision, I feel aligns with Edwin and Charles, but it also, I feel, aligns with a lot of the people that I know in the retreat center industry, and in particular with friends in Santa Barbara who are, I guess, hankering for a center to contribute.
You felt the vision was aligned with you, with Edwin and Charles, and the center could touch many people. That's my word.
I don't really know what else to say for the moment, so I feel heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you just select your listener, Robert, and
Okay. I would say that,
who are you speaking to? Candace or Rodley?
I'm sorry, who's listening?
It's your choice. You select your listener. Perhaps someone who hasn't spoken or listened yet.
Okay. Candace, would you listen?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Well, first, I think we've been carrying our lives and realizing this special time that we're in. I've studied the Mayan calendar, the Hopi calendar, and listening deeply over the ancient ones all over the world. And it's why we've all come together, because we're carrying that wisdom that we've been asked to put out. So the word empathy and Edwin's vision is really a co-creation of, I feel, for all of us at this point.
I hear you. Can you hear me? Robert, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I heard you say that you're caring about your life in this special time, that you've studied the Mayan calendar, the Hopi, and the ancient ones, and about what a special time this is, and that creating a center around empathy answers part of that call. That's my word, but
Yes.
thank you.
And I think I feel a part of this center should deeply, deeply remember. I break the word apart, remember our divine humanity. But this will only work because of the regeneration, if that is a part of it, of the divine goddess, the divine feminine. Because we've watched 3,000 or 4,000 years pass, more, where the matriarchal society were put under, and the patriarch came forth. And this is my heart opinion, will work with a gathering of both male and female that have the divine goddess of both.
I hear you saying that what is dearly held in your heart and very important is to remember to come together again with our divine self, and that we must include the divine feminine, to reweave that's my word, but to reweave that, both male and female, and that this is the way to generate this new level.
Yes. Mostly because those ancient, where I've studied and been in other lives, were matriarchal, coming out of Lemuria and Mu and the spread of the divine. But then it went dark. So this is its time. This is its time.
I hear you talking about your study and resonance with the ancient cultures of Mu and Lemuria. And yes, about the cycle of going into darkness, and that this is the time to move back and connect those two.
And that was also the time, 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Candace.
Thank you. Radele, would you listen to me? Radele, can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Are you asking me to listen?
No,
No,
it's
I was asking
Radele. I think
Radele.
her video is frozen.
Is it frozen? Okay.
Yeah, you might need to choose someone else until she comes back.
Absolutely. David, would you listen to me? Unmute, please.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Well, like several of you, I was awake last night with several possibilities about retreat centers and the excitement and the deep nurturing it would be to have this center in Santa Barbara.
Sounds like you were anticipating this conversation last night, and it was keeping your mind rolling.
One thing I really like about empathy is, unlike the words God or spirit or even love, which have so many different meanings to so many different people, empathy connects with all of that, but in a sideways motion that doesn't have a lot of defenses.
Mm-hmm. So, trying to be incisive here. The empathy is a word like a lot of other words that are used I'm going to need you to say that again.
Okay.
Sorry.
What I love about the word empathy is it's much more neutral than God, spirit, or love, which means so many things to so many people.
So you like the word empathy
Mhm.
because it's less controversial and more neutral and than
Yeah.
a lot of these other commonly used words. Okay.
Exactly. There's so many areas I could talk about. I align with you about the physical structure and how it looks. One of the sentences I wrote down was that all of us who have been part of retreat centers know how to create sacred space. It may take time, but we know how to do that and to create an outward environment of either serenity or peace or inspiration.
So you also feel the emotions that I expressed about the space, but those of you who have people who have done a lot of this, including yourself, know how to create the feeling that makes this retreat center a sacred space.
Part of my vision for this place would be to integrate those spiritual practices, movement, breath, prayer with the staff so that it's not just business only.
So you'd like to integrate other, I don't know whether to call them, they're other practices, breathing, centeredness practices with the staff, so it's not just work.
Correct. And having been behind the scenes, I know that the guests don't feel any of that necessarily, but the inner workings of it are often highly stressed.
Right, so you'd like to have an integrated emotional experience for the guests and the people that are actually serving or helping run the place.
And I could talk for 3 hours and I'll stop now.
So yeah, you could say a lot more about this.
I feel heard. Thank you.
Radule, are you back?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Cox left me a note 2 days ago that my phone, my internet might be disconnected at some point, and it just happened at that moment. So I'm now on my phone. So I'm very sorry.
Love it. You're here, so.
Should I listen or speak?
you
What
listen
would
to
you
me?
like me to?
Can you
Yes,
listen?
I love to listen to you. Yes.
So I share, my father's a refugee also from Austria.
Mm.
So I have that also in my background. When I got involved with Edwin, I went to a meeting and Edwin was whispering in my ear, a political meeting after Trump's election, and Edwin was whispering in my ear that it's all about empathy, and I didn't know what he was talking about. So I'll let you reflect that.
So I heard you saying that you also are deeply touched from your family's history of being refugees from Austria. And you told about this moment when Edwin whispered into your ear after Trump's election that it's all about empathy. And at first you didn't know what that means, but it seems now you do.
Well, so there were, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Berkeley, there were a lot of protests in Berkeley where Trump supporters and people from the right wing were coming to Berkeley to try to provoke Antifa and what they viewed as Berkeley represented the extreme left. And so there was a lot of focus on Berkeley. And Edwin invited me to go with his empathy tent to one of these protests, and I said I would go.
Wow. Well, I heard you saying that, and I have to first say that I lived 7 years in Berkeley and go once a month up there to visit my friends, so I know it very well. You said that there was, especially after Trump's election, this time where right-wingers would come in and try to disrupt, you know, Berkeley as a obviously quite liberal town, and create havoc and dissension. And that you went with Edwin and your empathy tent and try to be present and helpful. Man, I would love to hear more about this, what happened, but it sounds like an amazing thing to do.
Well, and so what my experience was, we were at a protest that turned violent between Trump supporters, and there was a bunch of different people there that ended up becoming famous, including Stuart Rhodes, who was just convicted of sedition for his participation in January 6th. He's the leader of the Oath Keepers. But my real point is, it became really clear to me that day that this was really gonna be bad, and that violence was gonna be a very likely outcome if everybody on all sides kept doing the same thing they've been doing.
Mm-hmm. So you told us how things got really intense between the right and the left, and more and more high profile, including this famous man who's the head of the Oath Keepers. And it sounds to me that you said, tell me if I understood this right, that if you look ahead, or if you look right now, and if you look ahead, you can see the potential for violence and for trouble mounting, and the need for empathy.
What I said was, I realized back then in 2017 that if everybody kept doing the same thing, that we were going to go to a bad place.
Okay, I extrapolated out. I'm sorry, and you felt that.
That's okay. It's your turn. You can speak. Mm-hmm. Your turn to choose somebody to listen to you.
Is your time up already?
Yeah, it was up. I held up. You probably don't see all the. I held up this sign, so that says the time is up. So it's your turn now to select the listener.
So maybe I like to choose Edwin again.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because then we are across down the circle. So first, I feel incredibly grateful to be invited here, because it feels like almost like a long-held longing of mine coming true. So from the same background of being a post-war German and hearing Elie Wiesel saying the good Germans may not be guilty but responsible, which I have never forgotten.
Mm-hmm. So you're grateful to have been invited here because this addresses the responsibility of being a German. And someone said that even if you weren't involved, there was still a responsibility, and you've remembered that.
Yes, I would say nowadays it's more my responsibility as a human.
Mm-hmm.
I very much see what, I can't see you all now, so I forgot the name of the man who just, I can only see you, Edwin, but the gentleman who talked just before me, I can see exactly what he sees. This this immense challenge has been created in our society. I agree to everything Sean and Candace said about retreat centers, and I haven't run retreat centers, but I have taught in Esalen and Spirit Walk and Blue Spirit and, you know, La Casa de Maria. So I know from that perspective as somebody who has been teaching. But mainly I'm really interested in, and I have dedicated my life to being part of something that can help. And I think empathy is compassion. Empathy is, in climbing over the empathy wall, is what we need. And I don't know exactly how to do that, but I love to be, actually, I don't know at all how to do that, but I love to be part of working on it.
So you've been involved in retreat centers. You've taught at them at various retreat centers, and you're also seeing what Dave has been talking about, the potential for problems, violence going forward. And you see that the importance of empathy, but not quite sure like how to go about addressing the problems with empathy. I think that's what, I don't know if that's quite it.
Well, I have some ideas. I studied with Joanna Macy, who's a close friend of mine, the work that reconnects, and I'm a Buddhist practitioner since 1981, and I have worked a lot on how to work with societal and personal, long-standing, painful patterns. It's and I've gained a lot of tools. I'm lucky enough, but it seems the challenge is so great and feels so potentially violent and hazardous that I'm aware that this needs a lot of good thinking.
So you see that the problems are so big. You have learned various or done various practices, Joanna Macy, the work that connects, and other ones, and you realize that that because the problem is so big that it's going to take some real work or real thinking to address it. And that was also the time, the 4 minutes. Do you feel heard for now?
Thank you very much. That was lovely.
It'll come around again, so I'll speak to Robert. And let me hit this clock. Yeah, from just my experience, I do see empathy as this core foundational value. And not only are we talking about it, we're doing it here. So the empathy circle is sort of this minimal viable process that with this basic empathy circle, we can really go a long way, towards building a culture of empathy.
You feel that this foundation you're building of a culture of empathy is it's happening now. That was my word.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing it now. Everyone gets a chance to speak. Everyone has a chance to speak. Everyone feels heard to their satisfaction. It's a simple first step process, but it's sort of core to kind of the work that we want to do.
It's a core of your work you want to do, as everyone is heard. Everyone is heard.
Yeah. And this is the core of what we did in the empathy tent. So people would come to the empathy tent. We'd say, we're here to listen. We're not judging you. we're just going to listen to you, be it the left or the right. They would come into the tent and we would listen. And then we also tried to get them to talk with each other and do empathic listening with each other. And we did this and in the documentary, you can see it ended with hugs between the people who on the other side of the street were beating each other up. And in the empathy tent, they were giving each other hugs. So I know it works.
You're in that center, you know that the exchange works. Listening and also deeply listen is what I heard from you, Edwin. And as you said, people across the street were beating each other up, but the center was deeply listening.
Yeah, and Dave can speak about it. We went to a right-wing rally where 5 of the Identity Europa group came into the tent, and they were the ones who had the tiki torches at, Charlottesville, for example. And we're talking about the Holocaust. So Dave's, Jewish, and they were sort of Holocaust deniers. So we actually had an empathy circle with them on the topic.
Can I first say, wow, good job. Edwin just said that he did an empathy circle at a right-wing gathering, and the deniers of the Holocaust and the Holocaust. And there was an exchange there that, I'm putting my words, so needed, but attaboy, Edwin, that's impressive.
And so this is again why we're at, the center. Our goal is to create a more empathic society. That means to take empathy into our political sphere too. We'd love to get Republicans and Democrats in the Congress to have empathy circles with each other. And when I ran for Congress, actually as the empathy candidate, and the first thing I did was reach out to the other candidates to do empathy circles. So we want to take that message, as a movement to Congress too.
You you did take this message to Congress, running as an empathy candidate and trying to bring both sides together, Republican and Democrat. And it's
yeah, I feel fully heard. That was my time. So you can select your listener now.
great.
You can select a listener, Bob.
I'm sorry, I had a buzz in this wonderful amplifier. Would you mind repeating that so I can give it back to you?
It's your turn to speak now, and you can select the listener.
Okay. Rudell, could I ask you to listen? Mindful Heart Programs.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I love to.
Okay. Our first gratitude from my heart to your heart, Edwin, and everyone that I see on this screen gives me inspiration to know and to be that we're all on the right path. And it does take a tribe.
You expressed your gratitude for being here and for knowing that you are on the right path and that you're connected to a group of people, a tribe that you feel aligned with.
The next thing is really with reference to the container and the importance of what is going to go in the land itself and listening to the spirit of that place
Mm.
of Santa Barbara. Interesting name, isn't it? A divine saint, a woman, Saint Barbara. And so there's many messages to be heard as each one of you visit the actual location, because the depth of the messages from the spirit of the land will give you guidance.
You were talking about the container and the importance of the container of the land, the container of Santa Barbara, and also the spirit of Saint Barbara as I guess a saint, and what wants to be heard from the place, the town, and the spirit of Saint Barbara as it pertains to our mission.
And just to reinforce something that was said before, but the word and the resonance of the word empathy, the resonance of the word empathy, and what it is embedded with is beyond the beyond of have people, our humanity remembering. And it's really, and the last thing to that is, isn't this something that my grandfather was from the German part of Zug in Switzerland, and look at all of the Germans. My mother was an immigrant, and look at what we're all coming with from Italy, and this opportunity in Austria, and thank God we've got a McNair in there and a Mitchell to balance and get some of this wonderful spirit from the ancients of Ireland and England. And so gratitude.
So you were expressing your gratitude, and also to listen to the word empathy, which means remembering the beyond and beyond, and the reverberations.
Yes.
So it seems that is really important to hear, to really listen and to remember and to hear the resonance. And also you were thinking about how so many of us come from these immigrant places, and bringing in what we bring, as well as the people who are already here from this land.
Perfect. Thank you.
So it's your turn again to Rodley to speak.
Sorry.
Select your listener.
Yeah, I don't see the sign right now, but I get it. The gentleman from Vienna.
Dave.
Hi, I said.
Hi.
Das bin ich. Yeah.
Gut. So I will be speaking now? Yes, I will be speaking. Well, thinking about this this wonderful opportunity, which in some ways it would be, I see this center, and I know very little, so I feel preposterous almost to say this. but I see the center as a retreat center, like we know so many, Omega and Spirit Rock and Esalen, and there are many lessons to be learned, but and to learn the good that the safe place aspect of these centers. I think they're all refuges and safe places and places of deep security. And I think that that's what we need in a time of when the storms run high, to have a place where we remember that what doesn't die.
So you think, when you think about the feeling of being in places like Spirit Rock, Esalen, Omega, it's a feeling of safety and security, and you feel that that's something we need, and that this place can be also like that.
Right. I think that is, besides what I'm still challenged with the names because I don't see them all. The gentleman before me who talked, the place and the indigenous source. Yes. But I feel besides that, we have like an amazing opportunity here. But I don't see any center right now really taking on. There have been initiatives who try to spread empathy. Like I have been going to see the Dalai Lama every year in India before COVID. And all he talks about is compassion and interdependence. If you see our interdependence, then compassion comes naturally. Or to see the Northern Irish conflict, that my husband was involved with mediating that. He's Irish. And, so I have seen our solidarity, compassion.
Well, I'll reflect.
She's coming back.
Okay. Hi. Why don't you let me reflect what you said so far, please?
Okay.
You were talking about the word empathy and how you see the Dalai Lama. I think you said every year, and he talks about compassion and interdependence. But the word empathy is not mentioned, I think is what was implied in that, what you said there. Yeah, give me more now.
Okay. So I have seen initiatives that have tried to work on this. There's this wonderful book by Ali Russell Hochschild, the Berkeley sociologist, who talks about climbing the empathy wall. I think that's a must read for everybody. So I think there have been initiatives to work on this, but I haven't seen a center that really dedicated itself to help us as a society climb that empathy wall. And I could also see this be as a place where leaders are trained, who then go out into society and help.
Right. So you brought up Arlie Hochschild's book, and you talked about the empathy wall that needs to be climbed, and that there are a lot of initiatives, but there is no place that's fully dedicated to this that you're aware of. And that it makes you excited, basically, that this is something we want to do.
Exactly.
That was the time, and it was also that was the time. I think you dismissed the training people.
The trainings, yeah, right. I'm sorry. Right.
So you
see this as a place we could do trainings. So I'll speak to Sean. Yeah, I mean, we also obviously see it as a place to do trainings. Ideally, we'll raise as much money as possible so that we're not struggling to fund the actual facility itself. That's what I'm hoping we can do. And so that we're in a position to put on programs that we choose.
What I understand you saying is that you're very interested in the Empathy Center having trainings, and hopefully to the degree of which you can have, my word, donors who can support the mission such that the perhaps income from overnights, it can at least break even.
Right. And I think what Edwin said is really important. We are doing relational empathy. It's not just a word. And I think our experience is that, it's one thing to do it in a conversation that is not controversial, but when people are having disagreements and don't see each other as fully human, it really breaks down that, mental barriers that exist between people.
You were saying that the notion that you're speaking in terms of the empathy, the way you're speaking it is more relational. Individuals are who aren't like-minded, where it's more challenging, rather than those that are like-minded, can see each other as fully human and can hear and listen deeply to each person's mindset, if you will.
Right. And so, we have many missions that we're thinking about besides running the retreat center, that include things like we want to build out the Empathy Tent as a chapter-based organization that we, if possible, bring people to Santa Barbara to train and then support them as they're out there in the world, on campuses and wherever people want to get involved with us.
You also see the retreat center as being a training center for the empathy culture in the terms of training people to have tents and can go into their own communities and out into the greater world and utilize the training that they've gotten from the retreat center training program as its own division, if you will, of the retreat center, its own initiative in a way.
Right. So we see the retreat center as an entity that does retreats and houses some of the infrastructure that we use to run the larger organization. But it's not the only thing we do.
Okay, you're saying that the retreat center may be foundational in terms of being a place where people came, but it's also foundational in terms of some of the other initiatives that you might be able to launch in terms of building a culture of empathy in the world.
Right. Thank you. I feel heard.
Thanks, David. I'll choose Candace.
I'm listening, Sean.
Gosh, I have a tendency sometimes to really extrapolate a lot and have lots and lots and lots of ideas. And I can see that I feel as if the Santa Barbara Empathy Center, similar to what David said, is can be a foundation that begets a lot of initiatives to contribute to the greater good.
I hear you saying that you have the ability to extrapolate a lot from a lot of different ideas, and that in looking at the Empathy Center, that it can generate a great deal of opportunities and many options.
Thank you. Yes. In addition, just the name.
Yeah.
Empathy Center of Santa Barbara, or Santa Barbara Empathy Center, but Empathy Center is just the name and how it will go out into the world and generate its own energy and attraction, like a law of attraction kind of a frequency. I believe that it'll be a really wonderful, lighthouse with lots of different beams, right? Lots of different streams of light and energy in terms of building a culture of empathy.
I hear you say about the name itself and how the Santa Barbara Empathy Center of Santa Barbara will go out into the world and attract like-minded, and also that the idea of the lighthouse and those beams of light that generate many different expressions of this empathy. Did I hear you?
I don't really have a lot to say. I want to be candid that, my head is a little bit in packing up the car. But I do want to express my gratitude, and my gratitude to Edwin, who's been so encouraging and transparent with everything that I'm learning about their project. And also I'm very grateful for Bob and you and Rodelaide participating today.
So I hear you say you don't have a great deal more to say, that your mind is a little bit more unpacking and getting yourself going down to the center, and that you are also grateful that we're here, that you, and by the way, I'm grateful too, and very grateful to have this opportunity too. And that you're very grateful for Edwin and his transparency and clear communication.
I feel heard. Thank you, Candace.
Thank you. Edwin, would you listen to me?
Yes, listening.
Well, I'm going to echo something that Sean said too. I'm truly intrigued with empathy. I love the etymology of words, so I looked it up, and the one I liked was the ability and capacity to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be feeling or thinking.
So you're intrigued by the word empathy. So you had looked it up, and you had a definition of it, of the part of understanding and feeling others' experiences.
Yes. And also, I was part of something many years ago. It was a Quaker process, and it was called Listening Hearts. And basically, it was like this. And what was powerful was taking the time. It's like a talking stick. Robert would know of the talking stick, that the time to say what you need to say and then just be listened to.
So this reminds you of some other processes, the Quakers, and also the talking stick process, where it slows things down and you really take the time to listen. And is it similar?
Very similar. I have a friend who did her PhD at a divinity school in noticing. That was the title, noticing. That's part of this empathy also.
So just noticing is part of this process, and a friend of yours actually did a PhD on that topic.
I led a retreat a couple weeks ago in which I had people go out and choose a piece of nature. And then they were to spend 20 minutes simply looking at it, noticing it, feeling it, etc.
And you did a exercise just recently for teaching a workshop where you would just take an object and just really be noticing it and being sensitive to it.
I had a man who came with his wife, a CEO of a large company. And when he came back in, he had tears in his eyes and spoke about that he had fallen in love with this piece of twig.
And someone was just deeply moved. They came to you with tears and just saying how he had fallen in love with this twig that he had looked at, just taking the time to be present, aware of it.
I can see the power of empathy, especially with someone who is angry or violent or completely oppositional.
And you can just see the power or the importance of empathy for people who are violent or in opposition.
I had a friend, a therapist, who once said, people are dying to be heard.
And a friend of yours said, people are dying to be heard.
So this is a great vehicle or chalice. Thank you.
Yeah, so you're really appreciating the process as a process or vehicle or chalice for creating that presence and that listening and hearing some gratitude. Yeah.
Thank you, Edwin.
And I'll speak to Dave. Just thinking of what to focus on. We had talked about donors, so we have the funding for the space that we want. We're going to have just a wide variety of workshops, but we also want to find donors who want to not just support this space or the nonprofit, but a movement to create a more empathic culture.
So you're thinking about donors that might help support the expanded vision beyond what we're actually going to do at the center.
Yeah, as we've talked, that this is an opportunity, right? It's a big platform to accelerate what we've been doing in terms of working to spread the empathy, just the message of empathy, which is just listening, pretty much, deep listening to each other in relational terms, in the mutuality of it. And so we do see this, or I see it as not just a retreat center, but the retreat center is part of a larger movement for cultural change.
Yeah, so you see that your brother's purchase of this property is an opportunity for us to accelerate what we've been doing and expand really the potential of what we were doing.
Yeah, because we're talking about World War II and all the chaos in the world. For me, it's basically an empathy deficit, and Barack Obama talked about the empathy deficit over and over and over again in his campaign, and that is sort of the core of the World War II. All that mayhem was people not empathizing with each other. That's why we want to train all 8 billion people in the world in empathy circle practices, which we're doing right now as the first step.
So you see the chaos in the world and chaos, war in the past as an empathy, as caused by an empathy deficit. Barack Obama talked a lot about empathy. And so your goal is to train everybody in the world in the empathy circle process as a first step towards helping everybody empathize with each other.
Yeah, there's a lot of other steps. There's the mindfulness that Candace is talking about, just being sensitive and aware of individual, nature. There's Robert in terms of listening to our history, to our spirit, and being in dialogue with the place. So I think everybody, there's all these different aspects that come together, but the first part is just getting people to listen to each other. And not only that, to be willing to set aside agendas and just listen, not give up who you are. Like in the circle, everybody can say whatever they want. It's total free speech, free emotions, express any emotions, but that we just start with that listening. So that's sort of like the foundation, and that's why we're doing it here, to sort of model it for the center.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, there are many other practices that people are using, like mindfulness, for example, but we're trying to model the most basic practice, which is to just listen to each other without bringing your own agenda. I mean, you can bring your own agenda, you can say whatever you want, but emote however you like, but you have to listen. That's the condition.
Listen first.
That's the condition of being able to say whatever you want.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. That's my time.
Okay, I'll speak to Sean. I spoke to you last time. I'll speak to Candace. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of our favorite sayings. You can say whatever you want as long as you're willing to listen. And we also would say at these events, we're not a safe, they would tease us because we were viewed as being from the left, that we are not a safe space. We would say we're not a safe space because you can say whatever you want as long as you're willing to listen.
You said that one of your favorite sayings is that you can say whatever you want, and that you are listening, and that you say that, I'm not quite sure if I got all of that, that you're not a safe space in the sense that you can say whatever you want. Is that what you
Yeah, I
mean?
mean, there's a movement in the world that restricts what people can say, might hurt people. And we say, you can say whatever you want as long as you're willing to listen. This is, it's not because we're free speech, you know, fundamentalists, but first of all, we're trying to build resilience in people to be able to just listen and to be able to deal with each other with their differences. And how
I hear you saying that you're building resilience in order to be able to listen, that you can say whatever you want if you are willing to listen.
Yeah, I mean, we're not encouraging people being unsensitive and aggressive, but some of the problems we're facing, there is a lot of aggression and insensitivity and dehumanization. And if you don't let that into the process, you can't break through any of that stuff.
I hear you saying that you're not encouraging that people would be maybe angry or not angry, violent or outside, but that you're willing to listen. You don't encourage, is that correct? Say it again.
Yeah, I said we're not encouraging insensitivity or any of these bad behaviors, but you know, in order to break through and connect with each other, you have to allow people the freedom to be themselves.
So I hear you say you're not encouraging insensitivity, but really encouraging people to speak their mind, be free in that, and to be able to listen, therefore being themselves.
Right, and again, the bottom line is, you can say what you want to, as long as you agree to listen.
To say what you want to and agree to listen.
Yeah. And, you know, we'd like to build, as Edwin suggested, we'd like to build more practices. We'd like to develop teams that build practices that build on top of the basic empathy circle.
I hear you saying we'd like to build more practices that build on the empathy circle. There's a lot of possibility there.
And we want to use the center to literally take on some of the cultural conflicts that are ongoing, to invite people in who are on different parts of these things, and to do, you know, you can call it whatever you want. We'll have to figure that out. You know, we're thinking about empathy and democracy. I mean, it's conflict mediation, but processes for working in a productive way on the cultural and political conflicts that exist in the country, using the empathy circle as the sort of core of practice, but just the beginning.
What I hear you saying is that the center will be not only for retreats, but also to build this opportunity or experience of conflict, both socially and politically and in many other ways, in order to provide that space for people to experience that.
Right. I feel heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, Robert, would you
Yes,
be willing to listen to me?
oh, that'd be my privilege.
Thank you. You know, I don't have a lot to say either. It feels there's so much we can all talk about, and all the different possibilities. And yet already within this, whatever, hour and a half, I feel heard and seen and listened to, and it feels as if all of us feel the same. And there's so many different branches to this tree of empathy. And I'm happy that Sean brings the Irish and I bring the Scottish to all of you.
There is so much to talk about with the word empathy. And you use the tree as an example and the branches so much. And you are happy to bring, and I'm very happy to hear your Scottish background and Sean's background, the Irish, and yes, that's what I heard the most.
Thank you. I too am very passionate about and have been living with what I call a both and philosophy. My experience is that either or comes out of my ego mind part, and both and lifts to the level of empathy and spirit and connection.
Out of your heart comes both and that connection in empathy. And I'm sorry I didn't hear that first part of it, but I hope that was the essence of it, Candace.
It was. I have a philosophy that whenever my mind thinks either or, I have moved into a lower state of consciousness, I'll put it that way. And that when I'm in a both and, which this experience is, to be able to say whatever I want to say, and to be able to be willing to listen to what anybody else says. That is a both and world for me.
Your expression that I asked in the beginning, that expression of not only both and, but either or, in a way, put you back into God, I'm going to use a word you didn't, the kind of monkey mind chatter. And this is an opportunity to go beyond the both and, but be free to say what you feel and think.
I think I'm complete for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace.
Okay, I'm seeing we have half an hour and Sean needed to go, right? And we want to, at this point, just sort of open it up to free discussion. And I'll mention, Sean, you'll be going up there. I don't know if you're going to the center right away, but Charles put some furniture in one of the rooms. You're welcome to use that room. So just let you know there's furniture and a bed there.
Thank you. I definitely will circle back with you, Edwin. I'll go from here. It's going to take me a few days. Be in Malibu into next week, this coming weekend. My niece lives there, drop my son off with my other son. And then I'll return back up to Santa Barbara and definitely will circle back with you before I just show up or something. I might go to Santa Ynez and stay with Candace knows Barbara and Jeanette. Anyway, thank you, Bob and Candace and Rodelae and Edwin. I'm sorry to have to bolt, but I'm super grateful that you all took the time and contributed your heart and soul, and more fun to come, I hope.
Yeah, I think so. And thanks for inviting your friends and for being here. Sean will follow up. I'll be down there next week.
Safe journey, Sean.
Safe
Lots
journey.
of love.
Thank you.
I'll see you in
And
June.
Edwin, you ought to know, Candace and Rodelae will tell you that we're just the tip of the iceberg of people who would love to come in.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Ciao, everyone.
Bye, Sean.
Bye, Sean.
So we'll
Thank you.
just open it up to any kind of questions, no reflection, just open discussion, any kind of questions or comments or about the space. We'd love to have you come and teach there, hold workshops, or be involved in some way if you're in the area. It seemed like you really resonated. I could just sense the resonance with just understanding the importance of empathy and dialogue and listening. So that's sort of the message we want to bring people up there. And if you know of any others that would like to take part in these dialogues or be involved, spread the word. And any ideas for kind of moving things forward. We're kind of finishing the cleaning phase, another couple of weeks, and then we'll have a clean foundation. And then we're going to be starting to, there's about half of the property. Actually, you can see it, this half here behind me has been renovated already. So there's no furniture in it. So we're going to do some interior design work. There's about 15, 16 beds or rooms to furnish, and then that will be ready. And so we'll be able to start holding some, small workshops, could be day workshops, and a little bit later overnight. And then we have this other space here behind me that's the dormitories, and all that needs to be renovated. And that's going to take, well over a year to create architectural plans and to renovate. So our plan is to just iterate, start small, do more of these circles on ongoing circles. We have these on Saturdays as well. These are for more of the Santa Barbara community. And then the Saturday ones are just for anyone can just pop in. We have multiple breakout rooms. So it's a lot of our empathy community comes and kind of does sort of visioning and discussions there. So that's a little, I don't know if you have any questions or comments or, just kind of open it up to free discussion.
I have a couple comments and a questions, if I might.
Yes,
Because I've got to leave in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Appreciate that. And thank everyone for beautiful hearts and the resonance of you all. It's been a privilege and honor. Thank you. I wanted to just reiterate something Candace touched on as a point from the work we've done and my walkabout, and the healing nature and importance of the wild nature. And the Greeks had a word for their wisdom schools called lyceums. And in those lyceums, they would walk about with their mentoring, the students, we'll call them. And the walkabout would be in nature prior to them bringing in any structure, as they did understand before the patriarch took over the importance of Divine Mother Earth as a healer. And so one thing you might feel and think about, Edwin, is you could do some pop-ups down on that lower track in your acreage. I'm referring to the lower slopes, where you could have, and maybe using sacred geometry on those pop-ups. But because what has concerned me is the compression of the retreat center, the windows, the light, the parking in the middle of the facility. So a deep thought on bringing people back as a part of the experience of the retreat center itself. But you could do pop-ups the end of the summer and do a barbecue out by the pop-ups as an example, whether they be in a Hogan shape or a sacred circle or etc. Comment 2 is on really the as you're building the support and donors and local community, the importance of involving the visitor in a part of the solution. I was working out in Indonesia on an island that how could we raise money for this small resort that was attracting all these great surfers. But what we all came up with the owners was we would ask for donations when they pay their charges that day for the center, for the resort. And that money went to the village and to dig wells. And they brought in teachers from Australia and New Zealand and a doctor. So there was a clinic for the natives. This island just came out in 1950 from the Stone Age, can you believe? 1950. My point to this is there's homeless in Santa Barbara. There's children that aren't being fed. Because of the wealth in the Santa Barbara community, we push people out to have to drive 45, 50 minutes to work in the hospitality world. So what I'm saying, there's a solution where they would create a donation, and the Empathy Center would maybe have a separate donation that went in to a broader community, safety, food safety, whatever it might be, Edwin, as you build more, let's call it density, and your programs coming in, that you remember the region and the community can be a part of the solution that you're building and going beyond, because it is in the word empathy. It's understanding what's happening really. Like Santa Fe has become, there's so much people movement right now, relocation. It's become a place of the wealthy, beyond the beyond, by the way. So we're pushing people out, especially the glue of who is your engineer, your chef, your cook, your line person, whatever that might be when you start hiring. There was another comment, I think it was Candace again, but I just want to bring is sometimes as we work with what we know is right, we forget those that are with us.
Mhm.
And the idea that there's deeper training with your staff, and I'm referring to the hospitality staff, the carpenter, the engineer, the gardener. So there's a unique understanding, Edwin, with the heart and soul of what you've been asked to bring forth.
Well, as part of that, we do, everybody who's involved in the center is doing empathy circles. So we're having this training, and we do have these empathy circles
love
as an
that.
open invitation. So this is the 11th one we've had with the Santa Barbara community, and anyone's welcome to come in and sort of share their ideas. So we're sort of bringing in the community to for this dialogue. So it's we're trying to be very open to the community and kind of hear what people's ideas are and how they would like to be involved. And I see Candace has your hand up too, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I would love to. I was wondering if you have already planned when you said that half of it was already remodeled or renovated. So have you had anyone plan, one of the Chumash chiefs, they are the local tribe, to come and bless your land?
People have mentioned it. We haven't kind of gotten to that point.
And
Yeah.
forgive me, have you gone
Mhm.
up to Pacifica? So I've worked at Pacifica in the residence also. I don't know if you've been up to their Ladera Lane campus. Used to be a Jesuit monastery and novitiate. It's up Ladera Lane off of East Valley. I think you would really benefit from it. It's in very similar land. It's got large residence halls and moves up into the foothills, just the way this property does. And yeah, and
So
they
for inspiration, kind of go
yeah,
up there for some
for inspiration,
inspiration. Or
yeah, and just kind of see it's a very similar practice. And not only me, there are many people that know, but I certainly know several Chumash chiefs that who have blessed the land at Pacifica. Sometimes they have a large garden, so they come in and have a large group that blesses the land and does a ritual for the earth and the garden, which is lovely. The other part for me, my passion is to sense energy and to clear energy. And it sounds like, Robert, you have done that also.
Yeah.
Maybe others have. So that would be something that once you're ready to have a guest come in, to have a small circle of us go up and clear the space so that it becomes a neutral, open space for what you want to create.
Okay, so I'm hearing there as we check out the Pacifica as sort of some inspiration that we can reach out to you to connect with some Chumash chiefs that would do some ceremonies, and that you're also available for doing energy clearing. And so those are the three things I was hearing.
Good, thank you. Yeah.
And Radule, if you're...
Are you there, Radale?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Has your hand up. And
Yeah,
then Dave.
Yeah, I'm here. Do I have to unmute myself? Oh,
No, we
I'm
hear
unmuted.
you. I see
Okay.
your hand up.
Yeah. I was thinking about donors, but then also about collaborators who would have like similar ideas. And I thought I'm quite close friends with Jack Cornfield and Joseph Goldstein and Joanna Macy. Actually, we are going up next weekend to celebrate her birthday. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Mind and Life Foundation. So, and locally, I was thinking of Rabbi Cohen, who's a really wonderful person. He's the rabbi of B'nai B'rith. I know him quite well. And young minister called Reverend Scott Klassen, who just finished his ministership in Ala Vista, and because he has family money, he really wants to dedicate his life to environmental, social, whatever, peacemaking activism. And we are actually working with him together. So those are people, and one of my friends who moved here was the CEO of Esalen for 6 years. So I'm glad to connect you to Ben Tauber. My last comment was, I think your empathy circle is brilliant, especially that you can say whatever you want, that it's as long as you're willing to listen. Because in my practice and with my students and retreats, I see people are opposed to each other, polarized, but also they're very shut down and overwhelmed. That's what I see as the big obstacles in people to actually be alive and engaged. And I think the empathy circle and then building around it is really a brilliant way. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for those suggestions. We definitely want to collaborate. So we would like to collaborate with all of you if you have ideas on how to do that collaboration. A good starting point is this empathy circle. So any of those people that you mentioned, you can invite to an empathy circle. We can set that up. And it's just the beginning of a dialogue, and we can just keep that dialogue going and come up with projects to do together. So, you know, we have the space. I lived a year at Esalen, so I'm familiar with the space. The first person we had in the dialogue was David Price, who was his father started the space. He was director for 10 years. So he kind of gave us some ideas too. So, and the rabbi, just anyone that would like to take part, it's a good first step. And then we can do it online or in person as well. So, yeah. So,
wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
I have to go
Okay.
in 5 minutes.
Okay, go ahead,
5
Dave.
minutes.
Thank you, Edwin. I have to leave now. And
Okay.
great meeting you all.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us, and bring some friends. Let's have another circle. And
Okay,
bring some
thank
of
you, thank you.
your community. Yeah.
Robert, can you wait 1 second? I just
Yes.
want, before everybody leaves, one thing I want to say is, first of all, thank you very much, all of you. I feel it's very important, and of course, all the collaborators, especially of the kind of stature you're talking about when we're starting, is very helpful. It's very important to me that we think about younger people. You know, I think it's safe to say in this circle that we are elders, and we are building this place in some sense for them. And I think it's very important that at all levels of what we're doing, that younger people get involved.
Absolutely.
You know, our idea really is to try to build conceptually what we're doing and to bring in people maybe on the board before we even try to raise money. I think my feeling is if we have our act together and we have the right people that are part of the project, that the money will not be hard to find. That's what I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so we want to be careful. We think, you know, we want to be careful and choosy about who joins the board and who starts to work with us. And we are looking for all the help we can get. And we only have limited kinds of experience. We know what we're doing and how to do what we do, but we haven't built anything big like this. But yeah, young people. So if you know young people that you think we should be talking to, we would love that. We would really love that.
Thank you. That is, we're paying it forward, and we won't, you know, we have a limited time, and to do that is great. I have, if I could, Edwin and David and all of you beautiful goddesses, I don't know if you've seen this, but Edwin, there's a film on Prime Video called Dare to Be Wild. It is a true story of Mary Reynolds, an Irish landscape planner, and her journey, and it's worth watching because maybe on that space you could look at a gateway that dares to be wild. And I just want to take a look at it. The film is a heart film and great acting, but deeper. And the other thing is, thank you for that, David, because that is our responsibility as elders to pay this forward. And it's been beautiful meeting you all. Thank you. I'm going to depart. Lots of blessing, love and light. And remember, we're lighthouses, each one of us, to all we touch. Blessings.
Blessings.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
So I will be up there again in a week or so. So feel free to stop by if you're in the area. Take a look at the property.
I was going to say, I'm going to be up there from about June 6th through the 20th. I would love to come up and see the property. Do I just simply send you an email and ask when would be a good time?
Yeah, that would be it. There's a groundskeeper who's always there, sort of taking care of the property. So if I'm not there, you can go there anyway, or also I'll kind of going back and forth from the Bay Area. So just an email just to let us know so we can kind of coordinate
That would be
getting
great.
together. Yeah, great.
I'm gonna be there some of that time too.
Oh, good. Thank you, David.
I'm always here.
Right.
Actually, I'm in Berkeley this coming weekend
Oh,
to be with Joanna, but I'm there for 3 days. But if you want to have a coffee, I'm always up for it. But otherwise, I'm down here.
I'm actually going to New York City on Thursday. One of my sons who's gonna help us with the design of one of the building is graduating from architecture school.
Lovely.
So I'm going to New York, but I would love to see you, both of you. That would be wonderful. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Edwin. Thank
Wonderful.
you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for joining us, and invite your
Bye-bye.
friends for more circles too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
I think,
Bye.
yeah, the circles is a good
I
way
will
for
do that.
people to understand what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a wonderful
All right.
day.
Yeah, no,
Thank you
it's
so
wonderful.
much for your good energy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.